Hey everyone, this is Dan Charles with Lite Forex. It's Friday, just after market close, May 1st. I'm going to break down the major Forex pairs, starting with the Australian USD. So let's get into it. But first, please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you like my accuracy, and go to the link in the description below this video. Okay. Let's take a look here at the Australian USD. So we've been on a pretty good run here. It was definitely time for a pullback. Now, the Australian USD on the 240 is definitely looking like we're going to get a bounce. We're going to get a rebound. And you can see we're holding support at this very important 0.6400 price. So you can see the low today was 64.10 and it pulled up slightly. So let's see if we can get a bounce and a continuation. Now typically a pullback is going to be 1 to 3 days. Not normally 1 day, but definitely at least 3 days of a pullback. This is clearly an uptrend. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 green candles up. You could definitely have 2 or 3. Now, of course, if this 64 breaks, then this is going to come down. And by looking at the weekly chart, it definitely looks like there can be more downside going forward. But I think short term, you can see we're hitting support here on the 60-minute, that 64.10, hitting that exact 64.10 price, pulling up. You just look at the 240, and to me, this looks like this is going to bounce. All this red, big gap from the moving average. I'm expecting a bounce. But that could just pull up and then come down. So what I would do is I would have 64.50 as a resistance price, because maybe it just pulls up, hits 64.50 or gets close to it, and then comes down, continues the downtrend. Now it could come all the way up to 6,500 even, and then come back down. But this is really looking like there's more downside. But let's take a look at the Australian futures contract. So you see the Australian futures contract, we're hitting that support at 64 as well. Quite a different look by looking at the futures, but you really look at this weekly, and this just tells me we have downside next week, more downside. But the 240 is suggesting we will pull up before we come down. So that's how I'm going to be playing the Australian dollar. 64 is going to be key support. If it breaks through 64, it's going to come down. 63 will be next. But look for that initial bounce before it comes down. Okay, Euro USD has had quite a move this week. Now, you can just see on the weekly chart just how rangy. I mean, you can see it on the daily, just how up, down, up, down. We're just in this choppiness. Look how choppy this is. It comes down, it comes back up, comes back down, and now we're just in the range of these large range candles. We're just kind of going sideways here. Now, the weekly chart would suggest there's more upside. All the charts are looking more bullish, but you can see the 60-minute, we're coming back, we're pulling back down, and there's definitely some important support here at 109.71. You can see that was where we hit support here at 109.71, took off here, put in lower highs, needed to pull back, and now we're trending lower. It put in some resistance at 109.82. Okay, to the daily chart, though, there is a bit of resistance around that price right here where it's closing 109.75. You can just see here it hit resistance off that price, pulled back again, and we are a bit overextended. This does look like this will come down. So the way I'm going to be playing the Euro USD is it does look more bullish, but I think initially it will come back. 109 is going to be very important support on this one. Let's take a look at the futures contract. Okay, well, the futures contract looks quite different, and whenever you see a candle like this, with a big gap from the moving average, just kind of in space here, it's going to have more downside. So I'm really expecting initial downside on the euro, and it'll be interesting to see if that 109 price can hold, but initially we're going to be looking at 109.5. Let's see if that can hold. I don't see how that's going to hold. So we could look at 109.2, I think would be a more interesting price, because one of the things I always do is when you have a big breakout candle, I'll draw a line right through the center of the high and low. Here's the high, here's the low. This is roughly the center, and it can be even just the body, the green part, the center, and that would be where that's often you're going to notice you're going to hit exactly support on that price or around that price quite often. So let's see if it can hold these support levels, but I do see this coming down, at least initially, even though the higher time frames are showing that this should be going higher. Okay, next is the pound. Now the pound is hitting resistance. So resistance, the high yesterday was 1.2643. The high here 2648. So it's putting in a lower high, pulling back. Very similar look here. Came up, overextended, hit resistance, pulls back, comes up, tries again, hits resistance, pulls back. So now we're right at that point right there of 1.25 support. We're hovering right at that price right now, and we shall see, that didn't work, if that support can hold. But I see this pulling back more, and I would look for support around 2463, basically the close of the 29th candle and the open of the 30th candle. Let's see if it can hold that support, but I see this coming down. I really think that this will come down more. The 240 is definitely suggesting we could get a rebound before we go lower. So just watch that support at 25 and in the next level support. But yeah, it's hitting that resistance and looking to come down. Let's take a look at the futures, see if there's something different. Okay, so yeah, you see that resistance at 26 yesterday. Of course, the higher part, which was 26.47, pulling back. Yeah, it just looks like there's more downside. But you always have to see if it can hold the support level. So watch that 2500 price, and then that price just lower that I discussed on the pound USD, and see if that can hold. If that holds and it starts breaking out to the upside, then I'll be looking to buy. But if it starts busting through support, it's going to come down, and it'll officially put in, this will be the lower high, hitting the resistance. Okay, New Zealand USD. Now this one really looked like this was going to pull back when I looked at this yesterday. Pulls back today. And yeah, going forward, this looks like, just like the Australian dollar, it does look like there's more downside, but the 240 minute is telling me we could rebound before that. You can see on the 60, the support at the low here, 60.47. 60.47 was hit a couple times, and then we're turning around. So look for this to have a bounce. 61 is going to be very important resistance price. Yeah. Let's take a look at the futures contract. Okay, so the futures, we're holding the support here at the low of 60.44. You can see that same price was hit on the 28th. It looks very weak though still. Very weak on the weekly. Weak on the weekly. But yeah, it's just like the Australian. It is suggesting that we could get that initial bounce before it goes lower. We're still on an uptrend. You can clearly see we're making higher highs and higher lows, but we're definitely showing weakness right now, and it's looking like we could go lower on the New Zealand dollar early next week. But look for that bounce, that initial bounce. Okay, the USD-CAD. Now the USD-CAD hit support yesterday. So you can see here we had support right around this price, 1.3880 or 79. Bounced off that price, came down, and actually when I was looking at this on the 29th, I was saying let's see if we can bounce, because it was holding right around that support price. Maybe it bounces. And that's exactly what it did do. Bounced, and as of right now we are choppy, but it does look like there's more upside on the USD-CAD for next week. But realistically, we're so choppy that until the USD-CAD can break above 1.42, we're just in a range. We're going sideways, and it really needs to bust through that price before anything. And the 240 is definitely suggesting we will pull back before we even continue with any uptrend. We're just choppy. We're choppy. And when you're choppy, you have to wait. You have to wait for resistance to bust, 1.42, or this support down here. And that's what I was waiting for, this support to bust through, because this to me looked like if this broke, we're going to come down. We're going to drop on the USD-CAD. Let's take a look at the Canadian dollar, because the Canadian dollar was looking quite bullish, and then it's pulled back the last couple days. So you can see here Canadian dollar trying to rally, hits resistance though at the most recent high was 72,200. Yesterday it hit 72,160, pulling back on that price, gapping down today. The key is it's above 71. You can see there's 71, it's above 71. So this really needs to bounce. It needs to rebound and look like it's going to break out. And I'd like to see it say above 71,700. They would have to happen Monday, just so it looks like it's going to set up to break through. Of course, if it goes the other way, if it breaks through 71 and then breaks through 70.5, this support right here, then we're going to go lower. But I mean, it's sideways, just like the Australian, or sorry, the USD-CAD is. So it's really a wait and see. Now the weekly chart is definitely showing a very bearish week, very bearish candle. Usually a candle like this is going to lead to more downside early on. The monthly, we just started the month, and the monthly is showing me more upside. So we're getting a lot of mixed messages, and that's what you get when you're going sideways. So you really need to wait for resistance to break or support to break. So let's wait and see how that plays out. Let's take a look at the USD Yen. Now the USD Yen, a couple days ago, it did break through its support. You can see it had support at 107, closed below it on the 28th, continued to go lower, but then had this nice little rebound yesterday, and now it is looking like it wants to go a little sideways. The 240 minute is showing that it's looking like there's some more upside, and same with the 60. The weekly chart is showing more downside. So again, lately on the Forex pairs, we've been very choppy on a lot of them. And now we're back almost in that choppy range here, this 108 to 107 range. We're just below it right now, but we've been so sideways, it's hard to pick a direction because I see signs that this is bearish, and I see signs on these lower time frames, the 60 and the 240, that we're going to go higher. So it's a wait and see. You can see we're putting in lower highs, but we're also putting in higher lows. So those contradict. So we're in this little flag pattern, basically. We're in this little flag, and you want to see it break above the flag or break down below the flag, and then we make our trading decisions based on that. But lastly, let's check out the yen, because I'm sure it's going to look exactly a mirrored opposite or similar. Okay, well, this one is looking very strange. We're clearly on an uptrend, but we're going up and we're red the previous few days, so that's very strange when you see that. But we're very sideways. You can see on the 240, we're just rangy. We're in the range. So just like the USD Yen, we got to break one way or the other, and I'm going to wait. You got to be patient in this game, and that's the only way to be in this game a long time and be successful. You got to be patient. You got to be disciplined. You got to wait for the right setups. And a lot of these, it's a waiting game. We're waiting for the setups to happen. So let's do that. We'll do a follow-up video early next week and see where these pairs are at. So thank you for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. Go to that link in the description below, and have a nice weekend.